Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I mean, this is truly a great day here in the city of Oakland. I want to just acknowledge my Congresswoman Lee, my good brother, Assemblyman Swanson, and to the mayor and to everyone else that are here. I always like to remind folks of the reason why I ran. I ran for elected office because as a young man growing up, I had people like John Kennedy. I had people like Ron Dellums, but even more important, I remember this incredible pastor, Dr. Martin Luther King, and his struggle. He was struggling to make sure that there was peace and justice, but even more important for those of us who are African Americans, to give us a sense of hope that we too can thrive and prosper in this country called the United States of America. Yes. And so I ran because I wanted to give people a sense of hope as he inspired me and gave me a sense of hope. And so I certainly hope that as you have listened to those that have spoken before me, that they have instilled a sense of hope for you to continue the struggle of Dr. King, to make sure that we reduce the level of violence that takes place on the streets of Oakland, that we give young men and young women of color a sense of hope as those that came before us gave us a sense of hope to be involved in the political process, to reach out and touch people's lives and to make a difference as Dr. King made a difference in all of our lives. The struggle still continues. We must not forget that. And so when you leave here, remember that the struggle that Dr. King and others fought for, the freedom, the justice, and the peace, that all of you must re-engage yourself in this process. And so, if I don't leave you with anything else, let me just leave you with this. Despite the pathologies that impact the quality of life in the city of Oakland and across the United States and the state of California, there is hope. Can you imagine if Dr. King was still alive and grace us with his presence on this earth, and we have President Barack Obama in the White House? I mean, can you imagine the joy and the smile? And I know he's smiling right now. So the dream, we've got to make sure that dream continues to go forward, and we've got to make sure that we continue to give people a sense of hope.
You know, my speech today, as short as it's going to be, is a little bit about personalities. Personalities come, personalities go, but it's the dream that is the most significant point, not the personality. It is the pathway, it is the goal, it is the push, it is the passion that is the most important thing. See, as a little boy in 1963 in Washington, D.C., which is where I was born, I stood on my shoulders of my dad. I was about 3 years old. And there was a man speaking very, very, very far away at this monument. His last name happened to be King. And he gave a speech that I see on TV often, and when I look at it, I can see the little spot where I vaguely remember I stood on my father's shoulders as we listened to him speak. I vaguely remember why we were even near. I just wanted to go home. I was irritable. I wanted to eat. But I had touched, and I did not realize that I was touching history. I wasn't close. I wasn't even really close. But I can go back and say, I was close enough. I was part of history. You see, that makes a giant difference to me because years later, on a January, very, very cold January, I stood next to Oprah Winfrey, next to Denzel Washington on my left, Samuel L. Jackson behind me. All these icons, as an African-American man, were sworn in as President of the United States. It's not the personalities. It's the dreams. It's the passion. It's the push. I recall in 1968, when I came home from school at 8 years old, I saw on TV all these news broadcasts that were going on as I was in the city of Los Angeles, South Central Los Angeles, where I was raised. in a very impoverished, dysfunctional neighborhood. And I saw this program, and it said a gentleman died. His last name was King. He was assassinated. I wasn't totally sure of what I was watching, but I called my mom at work, and I said, Mom, Martha Luther King just died. Not knowing who Dr. King was, but I knew it was a big event that was going on, and I called and I shared that with my mom, and she started to weep on the phone. And I wasn't totally understanding of why my mom was weeping about Martha Luther King. I wasn't sure. But now today, his dream, his impact, Martin Luther King, is why I stand here today. For his suffering. For his suffering, for his strides, for the tough times that he went through, I stand here and I have the opportunity to say I'm a chief of police in the second major city that I've been in the state of California. 1982, a little short, bald guy went into a police academy who actually had hair at that given point in time. His last name was Batts. And as he entered into that police academy, he made his way through, and he was one of the few African Americans or people of color to go into law enforcement at that time in a city in Southern California. As he put on his new uniform and put on that badge and put on that holster, and he thought about what a difference he can make growing up as a kid from South Central Los Angeles and how much better he can make it for young kids trying to make a difference in his community. And he stood in front of a mirror and looked at himself and said, "You talking to me? You talking to me? Are you talking to me?" See, I had to practice that inflection. I had to get my swagger down. I had to make sure that I had the right, feel to it. And as I felt good about myself, and I was in that shiny little uniform, and my leather gear was all squeaky because it was brand new, I walked into the restroom to get ready to go on to duty. Then on a wall in this police department had some racial epithet that orangutans and Puerto Ricans equals the N-word. You see, I put on that uniform, and I had a sense of pride. I put on that uniform having a sense of making a difference. I put on that uniform thinking I was a part of. But it wasn't there yet. Comments, statements that were made at different times that I had to take a strong stance against. I had to stand by myself. I had to reflect back on Henry O. Flipper and what he had to deal with and address. But you know what? My parents always told me, don't you ever come home and say you cannot achieve something because of the color of your skin. Don't you ever. Taught me, don't you ever make that excuse, and you will overcome. And one day I was sworn in as the chief of police of that same organization to make a difference for not only people who work for me, but people who were in that community. And you know what? Right before that swearing in, I stood in that mirror and I said, "Are you talking to me?" And I went into the restroom. And in a different restroom, there was something written on the wall again. Our new chief, N-Boy Batts. You put in the word N-Boy, what that really meant. And I said, haven't we come much further than this? Haven't we made a difference after 27 years? Haven't we made a difference in a change, in a shift? And I said, and I looked at myself and I said, maybe that change and shift is up to me. Maybe that change and shift is my responsibility. See, I'm a man of faith. And I don't always question my path. I don't always question where I go. And I don't always question why I'm placed in the places that I'm placed. That's my faith. I know it's a reason why I'm called. I know there's a reason why I do the things that I do. And I put my faith along those lines and I don't question those. Maybe because of been asked to make a difference, to be a trailblazer, to try new and different things, to make inroads for people who need help and assistance, people who need to be felt that they're important, that people care about them. Man, I'm listening to myself starting to sound like a preacher. Can I get a well? But in all sincerity, there's so many reasons we can make excuses for the things that we can't accomplish. There's so many reasons that we get up and we say, I don't want to deal with this. There's so many reasons that we can say that I don't want to achieve and make it better. Enough of the excuses. Enough of blaming other people. Enough of pointing fingers. Enough of saying that I can't accomplish. Enough of saying I can't do it because I'm black. Enough of saying I can't do it because I'm a woman. It's time